Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, today I'm back in my 2015 Range Rover Vogue SE, and I've recently just got this back from Land Rover Stafford, where it's had a couple of very minor issues ironed out. I know you must all think that I'm some kind of Land Rover sympathiser, and that I'll always keep making excuses for the cars, and that I'll always keep trying to show them in a positive light. You're right, I will. In Land Rover's defence, as always, the two issues that I had were very minor, but they were just starting to get on my nerves. The first one was quite difficult for them to diagnose, even though I knew exactly what it was, because it had done it ever since I picked it up. When you set off from stationary from a side junction with your steering wheel on lock, it would make this weird snatching, grabbing sensation along with a horrendous noise. Now, I've had this before with, well, particularly with Mark II and Mark III Honda CR-Vs, and it's always the rear diff. All you need to do is service the rear diff, change the fluid, and it just corrects it. If a diff fluid change doesn't sort it, then you need to change the fluid in the transfer box. So it's either one of those two things. So I thought I'd start initially with the diff, because that's the cheapest option. Now, rather than take it back to the dealer where I bought it from and start whinging and kicking up a fuss, I mean, I'd be the world's biggest hypocrite then, wouldn't I thought I'd just get on with it on my own. I can't be bothered calling to say, oh, my car's broke. So I just thought I'd sort it myself. So I booked this in at Land Rover Stockport for a full service. Now, even though it wasn't technically due a service, it had been done at 53,000 miles and now it's done 58, they've got an offer on at the moment, Land Rover, where they'll do a winter service. So for £299, they change the oil, filter, do a software upgrade, change the rest of the filters, and update the online service history for £299, including VAT, which is a bargain. Whilst it was there having its winter service, I explained this issue with the snatching, grabbing sensation, and I asked them to do a diff fluid service as well. I figured I'd just get on with it and pay for it myself. A little bit of British stoicism there for you. I didn't want to turn into one of those people that I get quite frequently. Oh, my car's making a funny noise. My wife's just lost all confidence with it. I can't stand those testicle-free men. The next day, after dropping it off at Land Rover, they call me to say, right, we've done your service, but the diff fluid service hasn't improved that noise that you're talking about. So I said, right, okay, well, what about the transfer box? Could you do a transfer box service as well? And they said, well, our technician, wait till you listen to this, our technician doesn't think that that will cure it. He thinks that the noise you're hearing is actually the sound of the diesel fuel sloshing around the tank. What? So you're telling me that that snatching, horrible grabbing sensation noise is actually just 10 gallons of diesel sloshing around the fuel tank? No, it isn't. Don't insult my intelligence. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was from a Land Rover main dealer. I've never heard so much rubbish. It just makes me lose faith in most garages, to be fair. They're all useless. You would think by going to a Land Rover main dealer that you'd get superior service, wouldn't you? You don't. You really don't. You'd think that their technicians are proper time-served engineers that would fix anything, and they're not. More often than not, it's some fresh-faced kid that looks like he could still breastfeed. He's done 2 evenings a week at Stockport College for the last 2 years, and now all of a sudden he's got free rein on your expensive car. Just isn't right, is it? Land Rover said that they needed more time to diagnose it, and that would cost me about £160 an hour. So I thought, I just don't know what to do next. I thought, hang on a minute, why am I worrying about this? I bought this from a dealer. I'm being too polite here, this isn't even my issue. So I called the dealer where I bought it from, explained the issue, explained that I didn't want to be a whinger and that I tried to sort it out myself, but this is what Land Rover said. So he said, right, well, drop it off to us on Monday morning and we'll sort it. So Monday afternoon comes round, somebody from that dealer called me, quite arrogant actually, quite patronising, the service manager I imagine. And he said, right, Mr. Goodwin, there's nothing wrong with your car, so can you come and pick it up? Well, no, I can't, because I've had one of these cars for the last 2 years. I know what's right and I know what isn't right, and that isn't right, so please can you take it for another test drive? Well, there's nothing obvious. Well, just try it again for me because I know it's there. I'm not making it up. I suggested that it might be best taking it to a Land Rover main dealer. So, later that day, the service manager called me back again and he said, right, we've authorised 1 hour's diagnosis. Very generous. But it's with a Land Rover dealer in Stafford, because that's part of our group network. So I said, right, okay, well, I'll drop it off to you then in Stockport and then you can just take it down to Stafford. Oh, no, you'll have to take it down there yourself. Hang on a minute, I bought this car from a garage 3 miles away from where I live, and now you want me to make a 3-hour round trip to Land Rover Stafford? It isn't right. Anyway, because I'm too easygoing for my own good, I took the afternoon off work and drove it down to Stafford. Sure enough, 2 or 3 days later, Land Rover Stafford called me, said, right, Mr. Goodwin, there's nothing wrong with your car, can you come and collect it? Now, anyone who knows me knows that I'm a very easygoing, very placid, very mild-mannered person, but at that point I'd had enough. So I said to the guy, who to be fair was quite amiable, I said in no uncertain terms, I'm not picking that car up until it's fixed. So sort it. You think I've got time enough to keep driving 60 miles down to Stafford there and back when there's something clearly wrong with the car? So in the end, I suggested that this guy, this mechanic, use this car for the weekend, take it home, and on an extended test drive, if he... Oh, no way. There's a Toyota Yaris there broken down. Must be out of fuel. So I suggested to this guy that he goes home in it over the weekend. He kept saying every time we do a quick test drive, I can't find a fault with it. So I thought, well, the only way to counter that is by doing an extended test drive in it. So use it for the weekend, I don't care. Sure enough, Monday morning he called me to say, right, I've used it over the weekend. Yes, you're right, there's definitely a noise there. I'll speak to the guys at Land Rover now and we'll get it sorted. You'll never guess what the issue was. Remember how at the start of this video I suggested that it could be the transfer box? Well, it was. It just needed flushing and then an oil change. Simple as that. Had Land Rover Stockport done that, I'd have just paid for it myself, but everyone's useless. The next issue they sorted for me was an annoying rattle. It sounded like it was coming from inside the cabin. I kept having to crank up the music just to drown it out. Now that turned out to be something with this electronic blind. Something had snapped and it was rattling against the roof. So, while it was at Land Rover, they dropped the headline in and replaced the electric blind motor. And now the rattle's gone. I was quite pleased about that because there's nothing more irritating than an annoying rattle. The following day I went back to Land Rover Stafford to go and collect it, and usually it's common courtesy when a garage has had your car to return it washed, so the customer picks up a nice shiny new car. That's what I do with my customers. But they do things slightly differently in Stafford because it was covered in bird excrement. And also I dropped it off with half a tank of diesel and I picked it up with a quarter. Everyone's useless. It just winds me up. I'm far too easygoing for my own good. I've become so accustomed to poor service that when I actually go somewhere where they do the job that they say they're going to do, when they say they're going to do it, I'm in a state of shock. In fact, I can't remember the last time that happened. I think the trouble is, especially at these big main dealers, I'm usually dealing with somebody who just clocks in, clocks out, it isn't their business, they couldn't care less. Not their problem. It's easier for them to say, I can't do something, rather than I can. And I hate the word can't. Can't just isn't in my vocabulary. Like my dad always says, can't means won't. In my job, I come across this all the time. So say, for example, I've got a customer picking up a car that they've bought on Saturday. I need the money in because my rent's due on Monday, so I need the £5,000 or £6,000 in the bank. But as part of the deal, I've agreed to do wheel refurbs or replace the windscreen because it's chipped or whatever the job may be. So I'll book that in for Friday so that it's all ready for Saturday morning. Friday rolls round and whoever I'm dealing with, they'll call me and say, oh, sorry, Matt, what it is, right, my missus has got a tickly cough and there's nobody to look after the little one, so I'm going to have the day off today just so I can, watch cartoons with him. Are you trying to run a business here or what? I've got an idea. Why don't you take the little one with you, stick him in the cab of your van, give him a colouring book or a book or an iPad or whatever it is kids have these days, and let him watch his dad at work. That's what I always did with my dad. My dad wouldn't dream of taking the day off work or whatever to childmind. We'd go along for the ride out. Everyone's just too soft these days. I think that's what it is. It's easier to throw up the white flag rather than keep battling on. I think that's the big issue with society. Anyway, rant over. They're the two little issues that I've had with my Range Rover and now they're all sorted. So hopefully it'll be a long time before I have to do another one of these guess what broke on my Range Rover videos. So cheers guys, I'll see you next time. Don't forget you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I'll leave the link below. If you're interested in buying any High Peak merch, then check out the store, www.highpeakstore.co.uk. See you next time, thanks for watching.